none other than Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
I should also mention that today also coincides with the wafat of Zainab salawatullah wa salamuhu alayha. So while we are celebrating, we are also offering our condolences to the father of Zainab, Imam Ali salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi. Anyway, without further or taking much of your time, allow me first and foremost to say to the MC that he has given me enough ground to sue Ummah if I walk out of here and get assassinated after this introduction. But nevertheless, if we do, then it's good. At least it's for a good cause. Allow me, in talking about family, to first and foremost define what constitutes a family, whether from within the Islamic setup or outside the Islamic setup. According to sociologists, they define family as the primary cornerstone in building a society or in the building of a society. We, however, define it as an extension to life and virtue. This family is so important in the Islamic setup that it becomes an extension to life itself and to virtue, an extension to belief and prosperity. It is an everlasting institution. It is based on two ends. One is male and the other is female. They are linked together by a relationship of love and mercy. This institution is dependent on the concept of being God conscious. I want to emphasize on the question of being God conscious as opposed to the common translation that we find here and there in different copies of the Quran as God-fearing. Because there are two distinct meanings to that, God-fearing and God-conscious. And I think we need to operate from a paradigm of being God-conscious, because to relate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the perspective of love is far greater and more constructive than to appeal to Allah or to relate to Allah from the concept of fearing Him. Because I don't want to fear Him, I want to love Him. And if I can achieve that, then my relationship with Him would be far greater than what we see at hand today. I think I should advise myself first and foremost, and all of us, to take or to visit Dua Kumail from a different dimension again. Because in that dua, we find that Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullah wa salamu alayhi, in which this gathering and conference is named after, we find that in this dua, Amir al-Mu'mineen himself emphasizes this point where he cannot base the separation from Allah, not on the basis of fear, on the basis of breaking that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because he loves Him and he wants to be in His presence. And the Quran illustrates this even further when it comes to the question of Asiya, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks, the wife of Pharaoh. She is the one that introduces that concept to us in the Quran in terms of relating to Allah on the basis of love rather than on the basis of fear and fright. She says, رَبِّ ابْنِ لِي عِنْدَكَ بَيْتًا فِي الْجَنَّةِ. She said, oh Allah, build for me in close proximity to you a house in paradise. I.e., her concern is that proximity, not the house. But since she knows that the only way to be in close proximity to Allah is to be in Jannah, she said, build for me a house in Jannah. But the prime objective of Asiya is to be in close proximity to Allah. And that's what we need to produce, a generation that is connected to Allah on the basis of love, not on the basis of fear. It is often, and unfortunately, a practice, and I say that as a joke, of course. We don't say it practically or do it practically, but sometimes it does happen. When we want to introduce God to our children, we introduce God to them from a perspective of fee. A small child breaks a plate, immediately God comes into the picture. It is as if Allah is waiting somewhere and He's waiting for you to do something wrong to lash at you. Gotcha. What does the mom say to that child? You're going to be barbecued. Allah doesn't have a tandoori kitchen. You're going to be barbecued. Okay, barbecued what? Over a plate? Then if I do something else, what is God going to do with me? If I'm going to be tandoori chicken, sorry to the Indian subcontinent.
Shawarma.
Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
What will happen if I do something other than that? It means I've already excommunicated myself from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from my inception. From the very tender years of my life. And I don't want to relate to this God anymore. Because He cannot relate back to me. That's how I have been taught. There was a girl who wrote a book after she became an atheist. She turned against Islam. She's a Bangladeshi girl. I forgot her name now. She said, I gave up on God when I was 14 years old. So the interviewer who was interviewing her, because you know, if you want fame today, you go and write a book against Islam. Instant fame. Forget Justin Bieber, man. Huh? Forget Lady Gaga. You want fame? Go and write something against Islam. Straight away you will escalate to the highest level of fame. So she was interviewed by one of those reporters, and he said, why did you give up on faith or on your religion? She said, because of my mom. Of course, this is not an attack on mothers. She said, because of my mom. Wait until I get to the dads. Right? He said, what's the story with your mom? She said, she's the cause of me disconnecting from the so-called Allah of the Muslims. He said, can you elaborate? I said, yes. Every time I told the lie, my mom would say, God is going to cut your tongue. And every time I would hear this statement, I would go into the bathroom and check whether I've lost my tongue or not. By the age of 14, my tongue was still intact. I gave up on God because I knew He did not exist. That's when you introduce God in a negative aspect to your kids. And we can't afford to do that. We've already lost a generation, if not two, because of that type of upbringing. We need to readdress the question of how we relate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and how we introduce Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the family structure to our children. So the concept of being God conscious in a family is of paramount importance, where both ends, mom and dad, the male and the female, aspire to self-sacrifice for the care, service, and love of one another initially and later for the children. Where both parties do so only to seek God's pleasure and acceptance. Where the primary function of the family is to preserve honorable code of ethics, virtuous conducts, rational customs, and the highest moral standards. To do this, let there be no mistake that both parents become inseparable partners in carrying this duty. This duty, however, cannot materialize and come into existence unless it operates within a paradigm that we can adopt as a role model to ensure its success. This question now is, who is this paradigm and why? Surely you would agree with me, brothers and sisters, that there is no other paradigm that we can adopt in that regard other than Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawatullah wa salamu alayhi.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
And in particular in the example of the family of none other than Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi. Since it was the first family in Islam after the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And since it has been already said many times and stated without any doubt what the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam told us to do when he said, Ana madinatul ilm وَعَلِيٌّ بَابُهَا. I am the city of knowledge and Ali is its gate. And if you want to come to the city, you don't go through the roof. You come through the gate. You have to come through the gate. And that's in passing. I say to our younger generation, if you want to know a girl, come through the gate. Don't come through the window. Don't come through Facebook. Don't come through Twitter. Don't come through Messenger. Don't come through the roof. Come through the gate. That's the proper way of approach and the proper way of getting what you want. But do our families, as they operate today, score any points if compared to the standards of Ali? Salawatullah wa salam alayhi. Let us begin with the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The Prophet once told his companions, and honest to God, this particular hadith sends shivers down my spine. I don't know who knew about my background to give me this topic, because I'm not the best person to speak about it. Just simply because I have 8 children doesn't qualify me to talk about this topic. But this hadith makes me shiver because of my responsibility as a parent. And today I'm sharing this with you, not as someone who's a turban wearer, but as a parent who's concerned for the welfare of our younger generation. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
The Prophet once told his companions, woe be unto the children of the end of time because of their parents. So the problem that the children will face at the end of time is not because of them sometimes, it's because of the parents. We need to understand what does that mean and how it comes into the picture. When asked by the companions if this was because their parents were disbelievers, is it that the children are going to suffer because their parents are disbelievers or they have a problem in terms of their belief system? The Prophet replied in the following emphatic terms. He says, no, rather, it is because of their believing parents, or so-called believing parents. It is because of them. It's not because their parents are not believers. He says, rather it is their believing parents who do not teach the obligatory acts of religion to them. And if they, the children, themselves show a desire to learn the religious obligation free from cultural connotations, that have got nothing to do with religion, the pure Islam of Muhammad wa al Muhammad. Salawatullah wa salamu alayhi.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
A desire to learn the religious obligation, they, the parents, prevent them from doing so. Can you imagine? Can you imagine a setup where the child wants to become closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the parent stands in their way? And they say, no. Haram shu, balash haram wal halal. Halal wal haram. Do we know what constitutes halal and haram first? Haram to cover your hair. You're still too young. Haram ashabebe. It's haram on your youth. Your youth has to be explored. Your youth has to be enjoyed. Your youth has to be, appreciated. And as if the youth of a person has to be appreciated physically. It has to be put on a silver platter for every Tom, Dick and Harry to come and enjoy and look at and touch and experience and so on and so forth. That is the culture that we are facing today in the world we are living in. And we have to face this culture by confronting it, not by hiding away from it. We have to be active participants in this community and society and culture that we live in. We have to challenge the status quo and not accept the status quo. If the status quo says this is fine, we have to be eloquent enough to display a different paradigm which is highly intellectual and wise to say, no, our paradigm is as important, if not better, than any other paradigm that you are trying to impose on us. But we have to believe in that paradigm ourselves first. We have to be the believers and advocates of such a system. And if we don't, then we are not in a position to even start to speak about such paradigm, or to introduce such paradigm into our younger generation. While it is the case that if the children obtain a material good, they are pleased and happy with them. Look what the Prophet says. I'm sorry to say these words, but they are the words of the Prophet, and I should not shy away from the words of the Prophet. This is how the Prophet concludes his hadith in regard to those parents who do not inculcate proper upbringing in their children. I am disgusted with them. He says, I'm disgusted with them. It's our responsibility not to have the Prophet be disgusted with the way we raise our children and the way we bring them into this world and the way we deal with them in this world. In saying that, I need to relate a small story for you, because with examples things become clearer in our minds. And I, take your leave if I take a minute or two of your time. I know we have His Eminence Sayyid Hassan to enrich us also with his speech later on, but I won't take much of your time. There's a close friend of mine. He's a very grand scholar in Islam. I once was having a discussion with him, and I said, Sayyidina, he's a Sayyid from the progeny of the Prophet. I said, Sayyidina, how did you start introducing Salatul Fajr to your children? Something that we all have issues with, my friend. How do you wake up a 7-year-old child, or a 10-year-old child, or 13-year-old child at 5 in the morning or 4 in the morning, God help the Dearbornians, in Ramadan? I don't know what time suhoor is, 3:30 or something? But I'll be joining you in Ramadan, so you're not the one to suffer alone. I'll be suffering. But it's a good suffering. How do you do this? You said, good question, because I was facing this, and I was thinking about it day and night the day I had my first child. Look at that. He had the concern for it from the day he had his first child. You know, there is a statement in Arabic, it says, مَنْ يَحْمِلُ هَمَّ الرِّسَالَ يُبْدِعُ فِي الْفِكْرَةِ. مَنْ يَحْمِلُ هَمَّ الرِّسَالَ يُبْدِعُ فِي الْفِكْرَةِ. The one who has the concern for the message, he becomes very creative in the way he propagates it and in the way he practices it. Why? Because he has the concern for it. He's thinking about it. He said, it came to my, I was inspired to do something. He said, when my children became of age, I went into their bedroom. Not with a stick. Not with a baton. Not with the, what's the one you used? Baton. To build the living daylight out of them. And to say to them, if you don't get up, again, you're going to be barbecued somewhere. Which is often the case. He said, I went into the kitchen. Listen to this, brothers. It may find funny, but it is remarkable. He said, I went into the kitchen and I started cutting apples. After I cut all these apples, I put them in a plate and I went into my children's room. I sat next to the child and I started talking to him and reading Quran in a very soft, melodious voice. The minute that child started opening his eye, I placed a piece of apple in his mouth. That child started tasting the apple. Woke up. Now he's fully awake, So he said, what's happening? I said, nothing. How does the apple taste? This is phenomenal. I've never tasted an apple like this before. The dad said, do you want another piece? He said, yes. He said, I have a whole apple for you. Eat the whole apple if you want. So the child sat and started eating the apple. And then what? He said, nothing. I left the room. The next day, He brought another apple. Over a period of 1 week, he kept doing that. By the end of the week, the child was already awake, waiting for the apple to come through so that he can have the apple. Then the father broke the news. He said, since you're already awake, you would like to join me in prayers? Subhanallah. Creativity. To get to this child, because he's still tender. Of course, our children don't like apples, maybe Snickers, Mars bar. I don't know if it's healthy though. I mean, the dietitian probably will kill me after this lecture. Anything of use you can introduce, as long as you become creative in the way you introduce that faith to our children. That's why when we examine the words of Amir al-Mu'mineen, salawatullah wa salamu alayh, we find that Amir al-Mu'mineen produces such creativity in the way we should deal with our children. He's the one who said, teach, train, and raise children to a time different to your time. For they've been created into a time that is different to yours. What may have worked for us does not necessarily work for our children. Right? Maybe we were raised with the, God all help us, you know, with these plastic slippers, and maybe it worked. Today it's child abuse. It's child abuse to even threaten with that, you know, plastic slippers with the 6 squares on the back, that you would see it on the back of your shoulder. The marks are there. They pop up after 2 minutes, you know, because you've already received 13 beats from the hand of your dad or mother. It does not work today. The child will call 911. You know, he says, I have to report a case of abuse at home. And we have no idea what our children are being taught at school because of our cultural baggage that we come with, and we're not allowed to even think about revisiting the paradigm of upbringing our children. Although Islam has provided many, many pieces of advice and ways to raise our children. Now, I have 12 points to discuss with you. I love the number 12. Yesterday I also spoke about 12 points. Today I'll speak another 12 points. Yani you'll stay with me until Fajr Salah, inshallah. But no. I will try to speak about them in as fast as I can. In other words, what this hadith alludes to first, which is the hadith of the Imam salawatullahi salam alayh, is what we call in modern day science positive parenting. You know, sometimes we feel so good to hear these words because they make sense. They appeal to our feelings and emotions. Positive parenting, as if Islam's got nothing to do with positiveness. Although we have a hadith Qudsi that speaks about the very positiveness of relating to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in which that hadith introduces Allah to us in the best positive light a person can ever have. The hadith reads, أنا عند حسن ظن عبدي بي فإن ظن خيرا فهو خير له. Subhanallah. Allah says, I am like what my servant thinks of me. If he thinks positive, he will find positive. If he thinks otherwise, he will not find negative. Let him blame no one but himself. Because nothing that comes from Allah except positiveness. That's what comes from Allah. It is us that we twist and turn what comes from Allah in our own mind of how we perceive things. If we are challenged, we think a challenge is a negative thing. On the contrary, a challenge is a positive thing, because through a challenge you grow. Otherwise, without a challenge, we become stagnant. If this bottle of water remains in this hole for 6 months, unused, unshaken, untreated, it becomes poisonous water. But when it is challenged continuously, it becomes healthy water to be consumed and to be, drank. And the same thing with human experiences. If you are unchallenged, you become stagnant. You cannot move in this world. You cannot become creative in the way you deal with issues and problems, which is an approach to parenting that aims to promote children's development and manage children's behavior in a constructive and non-harmful way. It is based on good communication, positive attention to help children develop and grow positively. For children who grow up with positive parenting are likely to develop their skills and feel good about themselves. They are also less likely to develop behavioral problems. If we introduce Islam from that perspective, which is a duty of all of us, what are some of these things we need to adopt as families in training our children in order to ensure our and their survival and safety? Here are the 12 points. Number 1, we have to inculcate strength in faith in our children and in ourselves. That Islam is the way for us. That Islam is the paradigm that we need to adopt. That Islam is the way of life, not only a set of empty rituals. That we pray here and then we lose the meaning in the process of what constitutes prayer, what constitutes appealing to Allah on the basis of dua, that we become totally reliable on the dua without taking action. You can't. You have to take action. With the dua, they complement one another and God comes to the rescue. But you don't just untie your camel and you say, Ya Allah, you take care of it. Now tie it first. Tie it. And then say, Ya Allah, I leave it in your protection. As the Prophet ﷺ said, even when challenged, if we have a strength in our faith and we inculcate this strength of faith in our children, even when challenged, we and them do not change our mind just to fit in the crowd. Don't be a follower. Be a pioneer in everything that you do. Don't wait for what others are doing in order to see whether you fit or you don't fit. And if you don't fit, you adjust to fit just to suit the environment or the society you are in. You don't have to be. You don't need to be in that position. You don't need to please to fit. What you need to do is be in a position the way you are and what you believe in without offending or harming. And be part and parcel of a constructive society and community that you live in. So much so that people will appeal to you when they are in trouble because they see you as a role model. And they come to you because of your moral standards, because of your behavior, because of your conduct, because of the way you dress, speak, walk, affiliate, transact on all these type of words and meanings. Because you are different. And you are different in a very odd way, but not odd in a negative way, odd in a positive way. The Prophet ﷺ said, he said, be odd among nations, but positively, not negatively. Not so that we can, every time we go out in the streets to demonstrate, we are reactionaries. We wait for something to happen and then we come and we start reacting to what happens. No. We need to assume our position so we don't have to be in a position to react because we have already passed that stage. We are so proactive in our approach that we don't leave room for criticism anymore. In the way we present Islam to others. We wait for someone to do something. The cartoonist of the Danish, I don't know, Tommy, Jones of your country here in America, which is a great country, by the way. If you have some people here and there that don't act within the decorum of human relations, we don't assume that everyone is bad in that regard. No, we should cherish and honor the society that gives me privileges to introduce my faith and practice my faith free from any persecution or any way of hindrance, because I am guaranteed that right. Khayrul awtani ma hamalat. Imam Ali says, the best of countries are those that provide for your humanity. I'm sure, brothers and sisters, by Allah, we will not be allowed to have this conference in some Muslim countries. I'm telling you. Permission, no permission, forget it. You're not even allowed to think about organizing such a conference. Take advantage of this. Take advantage of this. Number 2 of the 12 points. And there's so many things to speak about in point 1, but I'll make this lecture available. How am I doing with time? 5 more minutes? Okay. 5 more minutes, 11 points. All right. Number 2, to have pride in being who we are. What do I mean when I speak about this? They must not hide the characteristics that identify them as Muslims and cause them to be different from those around them. In addition, they should be telling others in an inviting way about their faith, not in imposing their way. Not in saying, my way is better than your way. Invite to the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Invite to the cause of Allah with wisdom. With wisdom. Something that we need to learn as well, brothers and sisters, in our approach, whether we are parents, whether we are young people, whether we are teachers, whether we are educators, whether we are alims, whatever we are, we need to call to the way of Allah with wisdom and inculcate that wisdom in the mindset of our children. And they should themselves, these children, due to the family structure and the way they see parents behave at home, become living example of what a Muslim should be. If we examine the way our Muslim children behave sometimes in public life, it is not an indication of what the society is all about. It's what the home is all about. Let us not always blame the society. For 20 years, sometimes we live in the West, and all of a sudden we're still dreaming day and night of going back home. Why? Because back home is better than here in terms of bringing up our children. No. It's the home environment that ensures the protection of your children. If your children grow up in a family that sees mom and dad always speaking with nice words to one another, that they don't exchange words of, I don't want to introduce these words today, okay? It's the worst day of my life, the day I married you. And the children are listening. I don't know where my mother found you. It was the day I wished I died. That's after 30 years of marriage, mind you. And the children are already grown up, 20, 30, 15, 12, and they see the father or they hear the father speaking to the mother with these terms. What do you expect of that child when he goes and marries? That he's going to bring roses to his wife? That he's going to remember Valentine's Day? Forget it. All his days have been doomed. Because he's seen the way his dad speaking to his mom day and night. You are this, you are that, you are nothing, you are... And the mother, mashallah, gives him her own peace of mind as well. You know? And then that transfers to the children. It doesn't stay with the dad. When the child does something wrong, immediately the attack comes. Of course, who are you going to take after? Your uncle. Here it comes. Because she can't say like your dad. Because the dad has already shown her his peace of mind. So she'll go through a detour. You know? Of course. Look at... Why? What's this got to do with this? You know? Sometimes our children say, why don't you quote example to us of people we can relate to so that we can model our lives against the life of those people who are not infallible? Because they're infallible. They're perfect in every sense of the word. Give us someone who's not infallible. I say to our mothers, you want those who are not infallible so that you can value and cherish how a non-infallible, in the presence of infallible, in the presence of the paradigm that we are speaking about, can also become herself a role model, if not of infallibility, but of some sort of perfection, so that we can learn and introduce such paradigms into our lives. What's wrong with al-Baneen? She was not infallible, right? But look at the way she treated the two imams and the two girls, the two daughters of Imam Ali sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She requested Imam Ali to change her name from Fatima so that she would not see the tears in the eyes of Hassan and Hussein and Zainab and Kulthum when Imam Ali would call her with her name. Why? To ensure positive upbringing of these children. And these are ma'soom imam. Ma'soom imam. But it is for us to learn how a human being who is not related to someone in direct line. She became the wife, the stepmother of these kids. But she can inculcate the highest level of moral Islamic conduct as a wife inside the house, and does not assume now that she is the woman of the house, she has to be number one regardless of everyone else. No, she becomes an integral part of a family that needs to be working together. Working together. So our views about mothers-in-law. Don't let me start. Mothers-in-law. She's always a snake. Why can't mothers-in-law be good role models and examples in our community and society so that our children grow in a healthy environment? No, because of the culture. Because we've substituted Islam with 1,000,001 different concepts in order to make our own way of upbringing children looks good. I know my time is probably out and past and God knows what, but I'll make available the other 12 points because they are important in my humble, opinion. I'll make it available to all of us. Please pardon my shortcomings and taking much of your time, especially my respected alims and my respected scholar, Sayyid Hassan Al-Qazwini. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you all. Wassalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.